Okay, Anya, ready for some questions?
Okay.
Okay.
Um, Art kind of feels like a bit like a fairly like the word seems like it's something that's kind of highfalutin or precious and everything. And art for me, I think maybe creativity is kind of more where my passion lies, and feeling like you can make stuff that isn't perfect, and now and again I suppose you produce a piece of art through creative living. But art in general, I think it keeps us alive. You know, it's a very necessary part of our nurturing as human beings. I would say the most necessary almost. I know you need to eat and everything, but there's something in beauty, you know, that's I think very important to us. And so I think art is where I think beauty lives in most of the time. Beauty lives in art, at least as I see art. And I think nature is like the greatest painting. So that yes, it feels really important to me how the space is set up, particularly in my direct environment. I want to feel like I'm fully occupying the space I'm in, and I'm the conductor of this whatever it is that I'm making. And so I want to feel like everything is easily accessible to me on the right hand side, seeing as I'm right-handed. I want my water and and maybe my paints to be there, and nothing superfluous to be on the table. Like I want it all to be just the important stuff that I'm using at that particular moment. And then to be able to fully observe and translate what it is that I'm seeing. I want to be able to get into that smooth rhythm of seeing and drawing down. And so that means that the easel needs for me to be vertical, and I can see what it is that I'm responding to quite easily. So the paper I bring right over to the edge. So it's the last thing I see before I see the page is the object or subject that I'm painting. And then the bigger space that I'm in is also kind of important, because I remember reading about Matisse that he used to like having a clear space between himself and the subject, so there was no clutter around, at least in front of him. And that's what I do as well, chuck all the clutter behind me and then feel that there's spaciousness in my line of vision, so that I can clearly make order out of the chaos of the little bits and pieces that I'm seeing. So if it's a bunch of flowers or something, there's a lot already going on there. I don't want any more visual distractions, so that I can clearly select what's important and dynamically place it down with this kind of passionate detachment, I suppose. I think, yeah. So the space is important, inner and outer space. So breathing, making space between the ears. I just read this morning about somebody who went to the Blasket Islands, which is the last one of the last islands in Ireland before you get to America, and he spoke about feeling on the island as though he suddenly had space between his ears again. And that's the kind of feeling I want to have when I'm painting. I want to feel like there's emptiness, so that you're completely available to respond. I think it's a human longing in us to be creatively expressive. As John O'Donoghue said, we are creators. We're not functionaries. We're not born to be functionaries. We're born to be creators. We are creators, like it or not. And I think everybody has this deep yearning to create, and everyone has the capacity to create. And it's not isolated to any one small elite group. I think that's a misconception, or some people have, maybe not so much nowadays. I think people are more allowed to be expressive, whether it's through even YouTube videos or, you know, whatever it is, that there's more potential to be expressive, personally expressive, and living a creative life. Like I find myself that I feel restricted if I call myself or if I believe that I'm only a painter. I want to feel like I can, not that I do it all the time, but I know that I get a great joy from using a mixture of media, like collage and kind of scrapbooking, and I don't really call it scrapbooking though. If I'm ever stuck, I kind of just tear up magazines and stick pictures on, and that I just like the look of, and I suppose what I'm saying is that I think it's a setup to say I want to live a creative life and be an artist, be a painter. I think the most creative people I know are people who are able to turn their hand to lots of things and inspired by lots of things in life, and not only tunneling their vision down one particular avenue. And I do make most of my living from painting, teaching and commissions, and but I find that if I were to isolate myself and only not isolate myself but call myself only a painter, that it would be a very narrowing existence for me. And a lot of my time is spent out like walking and downloading from nature, I suppose. Even although I never maybe paint trees, I love walking in the trees, and I do a better painting at the end of it. I don't know if I can really fully advise on creative living. Most of my work is teaching, I suppose, and the painting I want, like Elizabeth Gilbert said, she never asked her creativity to sustain her financially. And I think I'd like the freedom of that, not to feel like I had to make a painting that the end result was something that it was pre-decided and had to be perfect in some way. Commissions are a bit like that, but not really, because as long as I'm doing a lot of work from life and meeting the people, then I get really excited about painting portraits. I love painting commissions, and there's something expressive and free in those as well. And it's a lovely challenge to create to capture something of the essence of the person as decided by the person and me together. So it's a lovely collaboration. So that's the closest I come to kind of knowing. At least I know it's going to look like this person at the end, with any luck, But Picasso said, if you already know what it's going to look like in general terms, why bother doing it? And that's how I feel. I feel like, I want to be surprised by what I'm doing. I want to be inspired and surprised by the surface that I'm painting on, and that means making an inspiring surface that isn't pre-decided. Oh, well. Oh, I love food. Dinner. Oh, I made an Indonesian curry not that long ago. That was really nice. Kind of creamy stuff, like Thai green curry and that kind of thing. I love anything that's kind of made by other people, or made when I'm relaxed enough that I can really enjoy cooking it. I love like making soup and things and chopping up the vegetables, and it feels like a really earthy thing to do and very nourishing in more ways than just eating it. But one of my favourite things, it's not a dinner, one of my favourite things to do, and I think it's because my mum used to always, as she used to say, throw some scones in the oven. That's what she used to say when we were growing up. If visitors came, we'd be like, there's nothing to eat, and she would say, I'll just throw some scones in the oven. And so now one of my favourite things to do is to throw some scones in the oven and eat them. Especially when they're just fresh out of the oven. And then I have them with cream and my mum's homemade jam. This summer she gave me 6 pots of jam coming back in the car. So we've had raspberry jam and gooseberry jam and blackberry jam and scones and cream. Oh, my mouth is watering. I really, really love food. I was on another one years and years ago that was kind of exciting, about 10 years before, so I was on the Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year in 2013. I went in and just got into the heat in Scotland. I didn't make it through. I was really nervous, and I remember saying the next year, if I was to apply again, one of the things I would do differently is to ground and settle myself, maybe make some soup, but meditate, just to kind of have something where I felt a little bit more settled in myself before starting, because I was all at sea the first time. So the second time I did feel that way. I did a meditation in the car on the way to the heat, and it was in Dublin this time, so I felt like I was on home soil as well. My mum and dad were there, and my sister, and there was just a lovely feeling of support around, and that was probably one of my best days painting ever, because I totally didn't care. I just totally didn't care what was and it's really odd because there were cameras everywhere and everything, but I just had decided I was just going to enjoy it. I think maybe even not consciously decided that. So we had this amazing model, Neil Hannon, who was really still, but he had something more, he seemed like there was something quite there was substance to him, and so it was really quite it was inspiring all day long to paint him, because there was, you never got tired of it, like. And I remember at 11 o'clock at the break, one of the judges, Tyson Sharonberg, came over to me and he said, "It's looking great." He said, "Don't fuck it up." And I remember feeling so delighted that he said that, because he hadn't approached me all morning. I thought, God, what's going on? And then he just said that, and that really buoyed me up. It made me feel like, okay. But I didn't look at anyone else's work. I mean, we were chatting and everything, but I didn't have a look at anyone else's work all day long or anything. I just really savoured the process, with no, as I say, no intention for the finished product. And I'm glad I didn't look around, because beside me was Conor Walton, who's an amazing oil painter, and did a stunning portrait of Neil Hannon, like really beautiful, romantic Irish poet kind of look about him. So that's worth looking up, Conor Walton. And then later on, so I got through to the semi-final, where we painted a double portrait of Sally Hitchner and gosh, what's his name, the famous atheist. Oh, he wrote The Selfish Gene. That's terrible. Anyway, it was like the atheist and the bishop kind of thing, and we were to create a narrative, and that was at the Royal Academy, a really, really hot day. And myself and Alan McGowan were working from life, along with another guy, I think. And so we were quite close, and we had distance behind us to stand back. And I was really glad that Alan, who's a Scottish portrait artist, who I know, was there as well, because he was able to kind of talk to I'm still trying to remember his name, that's terrible. He was able to talk to them and suggest that they sit still, because when we were working from life, we needed them to focus on something, so that, most of the time that there was a similar viewpoint. So I was really pleased that he asked them to sit still for like 10 minutes at a time. And that was the main thing that was really lovely about that programme for me, was how it generated a confidence in me to just recognise that the way that I use these materials, what I know is enough, and it's enough for me to enjoy it myself, and not to feel there are no, it's interesting how you choose to use the materials. Each individual chooses to use the materials is interesting, and not needing to be judged according to a particular set of rules. And so from chatting with the judges, Kathleen Soriano, Kate Bryant, and Tyson Sharonberg, and Frank Skinner, who's brilliant, and of course Joan, again I can't remember her surname, but she was also lovely. Chatting to all of them gave me credibility. It made me feel like my work had credibility, because I was explaining something and they were seemingly interested in it. And so I no longer felt like I don't use watercolour properly. I just gave myself a license to do whatever it was I wanted after that. So thanks, Sky Arts. I chose to start uploading videos. It actually was something that I really felt, I felt kind of outside of myself that I needed to do this somehow, because I was like, there was this kind of bubbling up inside of me of something that I wanted to explode out beyond the room that I was teaching, and I don't even feel like I'm teaching. It's some sort of a kind of a nourishing, nurturing atmosphere that's created where there's a kind of exciting feeling of creativity that I think there's a palpable thing that happens, when people come together. And I wanted it to be more of a worldwide coming together kind of thing. That sounds really grandiose, I don't mean it that way, but just personally to one-to-one connection with more than just the people in the room, because I think that we all have the potential to have much richer lives with through creative action. And I started to upload YouTube videos because I feel like I have this energy to pass on what it is that I know, and enthusiasm, and kind of I want to encourage people to take up the baton for themselves, and to, I suppose I see maybe my job as fanning the flame of inspiration that's already there, but just needs a little bit of wind. So I'm the kind of wind. I think, I don't know, just if it resonates, I think I would I want to put it out there so that those people who are ripe and ready for this kind of joy can access it. And sometimes they're really bad videos, but I just like that connection, I think, and the feeling of collaborating and not competing, but really like a community of people rising up and being creative, coming alive through creative expression. That you are enough, that what you do is enough, and that each mark is enough for now, and to keep I would say that it one of the most nourishing things that I do when I'm drawing and painting, and it's probably why I keep coming back to it, is to find that place of stillness from which we can fully observe and fully be attentive. And there's something in that makes for a very, very rich feeling of presence and being here in the world. And I would love for that to be passed on, or for people to experience that through painting, if that's what they want. People can experience it through all kinds of things anyway. But I know myself, I can access that place of stillness and steadiness more easily when I'm setting myself up to observe and translate what it is I'm seeing. There's something very easy in that, and so I would hope that people would get something. I would hope to pass on kind of easier ways of getting there. So, kind of knowing what to select, maybe. Ways of accessing that place of stillness, through shaking it off, through half closing your eyes so you just see the darks and lights, rolling the shoulders back regularly, remembering to breathe, softness in the belly. I want to pass on all of the things that allow me to get into that flow, and just little kind of simple ways that you can feel success in your work. Like painting portraits, drawing portraits can be quite a daunting thing, whereas if you just break it down into simple geometric shapes, or there's ways of making things simpler. And I think if I was to say in a few words, which is unusual for me, if I was to try and say in a few words, it would be like to achieve clarity, to help people to achieve clarity and order in their work, and to certainly feel inspired. Yeah, and it's not all about observing and drawing down either. There's some sort of magic that bubbles up as you're going through that process, and you'll make something that only you can make from what you're seeing from your viewpoint, and with your hands and your stance. So I would want to instill courage and confidence and boldness, wildness, freedom, all of those things, and joy in the end. Oh, my children, straight away. And being near water and diving into the bloody sea, diving into the sea, and like this summer has been such a pleasure. The heat, and I'm from West Cork, so we went and stayed there for nearly 3 weeks this summer, and every day I swam morning, noon and night, and it was just amazing swimming in the sea. So that brings me great joy. Music I love music, listening to music, and where I can, like amongst friends, dancing around the place and singing really loudly. Like my youngest daughter Lily and I went to Ireland this summer, and we listened to the Greatest Showman CD on top volume all the way down with the windows rolled down, and we just belted out every song, and that felt to me like pure joy. Loud singing along to loud music, that is uplifting. And there's a quiet joy that comes from seeing beautiful paintings. Maybe like one time I remember seeing a Rothko painting on the front of a book. It was like a bad reproduction, and I burst into tears. Well, not burst, but I cried, because it just touched me somewhere. And the same thing happened with in a Victoria Crowe exhibition. She's a beautiful Scottish artist. At the Scottish Gallery a few years ago there was a lovely exhibition of her work, and I think it's maybe to do with colour. I think colour stimulates a joy. This bright orange and blue at the time was what I was noticing, and with Rothko it was the luminous band of light through the painting that just really got me, you know. And flowers, when I do tend to the garden, there's great joy in the garden. Please don't turn the camera around to the garden because it's such a mess now. But my friend and I are going to sort it. I love being with my friend as well, Carol. She's a lovely friend to be with, and Rose. I've got lots of friends that bring me great joy, and chatting into the early hours of the morning. My sisters and brothers and parents, you know, family, I guess, community. And just looking around the sky is incredible, like the bright big orange moon the other night, and listening to the owls in the trees and in Rosalind Glen. Rosalind Glen, always, like when you walk down through the ancient woodland down to the river, beautiful, joy without even trying. Yeah, I suppose joy is something that arises when you don't try. Actually, it needs to kind of it emerges on its own. But Brené Brown talks about joy. She talks about vulnerability, and she said that vulnerability is the root of shame and fear and all these different things that, you know, this kind of scared child kind of feeling, the vulnerable thing. But it's also the birthplace of joy, creativity. And she says you can't really have one without the other. You can't choose only to experience joy. So there is a flip side to it, I think, and there's probably the contrast of days when joy doesn't feel so easily accessible, makes the joyful times then even more stunning and life enriching. You know, that contrast. Yeah, but I think we have access to joy always, and I think it's Matt Haig wrote in his book Reasons to Stay Alive. He wrote one of his suggestions was to see if you can find something beautiful in every moment. Seek out something beautiful in every moment. And I think that is a kind of a route to experiencing joy, because there is always, I mean, there's the moon in the sky and the bright sunny day there above the camera, and it's just amazing to see that sitting there just suspended in the sky, and the massive trees beside me here. And you know, there are things that you can, even the colourful clothes on the washing line, you know, and all of this stuff. There's beautiful things all around us, a beautiful face. So I think, yeah, I forget the question. You're not seeing the question. Oh God. Anyway, yeah.
Okay. So you are always super busy, and this year you had a lot of workshops so far. What are you excited about going forward from now?
Okay. First, I'm not sure if I'm super busy. Like, sometimes I feel super lazy. But I think the thing is that there's a bit like the contrast with joy and despair. There's the thing of kind of needing that. But going forward, I want to take the month of September to really take a lot of time lying down downloading, because I would love to really give space to what I feel something new is arising, and I want to give space to that, to kind of know what it is, and maybe it is about expanding more out into the world. So I want to be able to, I think, teach a wider audience, but for it to feel intimate, something like that. And maybe to pass on through books, or I don't know. I like writing the articles for magazines, so maybe I'll expand it into a book or something. I do know that I really love teaching the workshops, so I'm going to keep doing those. And they're not that dense, you know. The workshops are between one, and I do one every 1 or 2 months, so it doesn't feel like I'm all the time teaching. Although the one-to-one coaching is something that's becoming more popular. I'm doing more of that, and that's lovely. It's working with obviously one-to-one in the studio, and that's something that I really love, because you can really get into you can troubleshoot with the person and decide where they want to more put their attention, and it's just really nice facilitating somebody else in their creative journey. And in the near future, as in I think actually next Friday, I'm heading over to Ireland. So there's a workshop from the 8th to the 11th of September 2018 in the Schoolhouse for Art in Enniskerry, which is an amazing venue, really lovely. And then there are 2 more workshops that I'm running here near Edinburgh in Mackenzie House. One at the first weekend of October is watercolour portraits, expressive dynamic watercolour portraiture, and the second one is the first weekend in November, and that's flower painting in acrylic and collage and oil pastels and really anything we can put our hands on, and that's a lot of fun. So I think they'll be the last 2 Scottish ones of 2018, so if you're interested, come on board. I'd love to see you there. So, it's been a real pleasure sharing my morning with you here, or a part of it. Thanks very much for watching and for listening. And I wondered if you have any questions, if you would post them below, and I might do another video like this in answer to those questions. I really love talking about this kind of thing, and sometimes the stuff that comes up is because I'm speaking. It's not something that would just come into my head without having the conversation. So thank you for being this sounding board as well, and have a lovely creative day.